What's happening, all you dudes and dudettes? This is Dudes Talking Freedom back at you once again. This is Luke.
And I'm Jeremy.
And we want to thank you for joining us on the Dudes Talking Freedom podcast. We're brought to you by Warriors for Freedom, a nonprofit that creates pathways to engage service members, to help veterans and their families prevent suicide, foster camaraderie, and help them live their best lives. Check them out at warriorsforfreedom.org. All right, folks, we have Eric Rice in studio, who is host of Patriot Prayer on the Critical Rice Theory Telegram channel. But we'll be talking freedom as usual and whatever else we want to talk about. So let's get into it, shall we?
Let's get into it. Eric, thanks for joining us, man. I know it's been a long time. We've been talking about this, so I'm psyched that you're finally here in studio with us, seeing as you only live like half a mile away.
Yeah, I mean, it was a long journey to get here. So.
Yeah, we have been talking about it a long time.
We have,
you know?
I mean,
Eric is one of the guys that is kind of an inspiration around here in the Dudes Talking Freedom studio.
A little bit.
Because, you know, he's kind of one of the trailblazers of this type of media, this medium of communicating to our listeners and to people that are like-minded, right? So,
yeah.
I don't know if I'm a trailblazer, but I'm certainly ahead of the pack of all the rest of us, I guess, in talking to people. That's I guess it's what we do, but this neighborhood's great because we have so many like-minded people around here, and it's just great to be able to sit down with you. I've known Jeremy a long time now, and first time I've been on here, you guys got me rattled.
Yeah, it's all good,
rattled.
man.
Good.
You'll settle in. No, we appreciate it. Eric and I were talking a few days ago about the book review that we're doing right now, Hope of the Wicked. And Eric is actually the reason I even read that book. He had a copy of it, let me borrow it, and I read it in like a week.
Yeah. Oh, it's a quick one when you get
I
going.
flew through it, man.
Yeah.
I was like, it was a page turner.
Well, it's quick and it's slow because there's a lot of things that you kind of want to like go run around and research, because you're like, I need to go follow up on this and go down this rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of tangential paths that you can take when you're reading it too.
Well, plus it's hard to get some sleep.
Yeah.
Right? Like there are certain, I remember at one point, that was one of my first books that I really started reading when I guess woke up, is it's a term we use.
Right.
But, when I started reading it, I could go 3 chapters a night and then my brain was fried.
Yeah.
Because if you're reading that and you're really taking in that information, you are kind of astounded that someone was saying that 20 years ago and no one listened.
Yeah.
Ted Flynn is a great author. I mean, I think he has like 15 or 20 books. I mean, he's got a ton of them out there, but that was the only one he ever wrote on politics.
Yeah, a lot of it's, we were talking about this on one of our previous shows about how he writes mostly about Catholicism. He's Catholic, and I believe he's from Massachusetts, which is where I hail from. At least he's got.
Is that how you talk?
I
hail from Stillwater, Oklahoma.
It's a good town too.
Yeah.
But yeah,
where are you from?
I'm from the Midwest. So I was born in Chicago, and I grew up in a little town called Dyer, Indiana. So I went from a place called Dyer to a place called Prosper, which is kind of cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Full reversal of life.
Very interesting. And you moved to Texas from LA.
Mm-hmm.
That must have been interesting.
LA? Wow. I mean, you talk about chaos on a daily basis. And it reminded me of Beavis and Butthead's Maranathon at the end. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good people in California, but I moved in the pandemic. I never really wanted to go there. When we decided to move to California, I had just did my testimonial on a podcast on Friday. First time I talked about it in a long time, but my uncle was shot and killed, and it shocked me. You know what I mean? It woke me up and just said, like, life's too... I literally went to my wife crying, and I said, she wanted to move to California forever. Out of college, we met in college. I was going to go to New York and work at the NYSE. She was going to take a job with Robinson May as a buyer in LA. And after a while, I was like, my mom is sick, so I'm going to stay in Chicago and die here. That's kind of what I thought. And then when I lost him, it was just kind of like, I went to her and I said, hey, listen, if life's going to be this hard, I'd rather just do it on a beach. And we moved out to San Diego and then eventually to LA. San Diego's a great town. LA is the living stereotype. Yeah. It is so much. There's a lot of good people there. I'm going to reiterate that. But at the same time, there are a lot of just, I hate the term sheep because we're all sheep in God's eyes. Sleepers. There's a lot of people not paying. They don't care. It's a very self-indulged city. And when the pandemic hit there, man, I did not fit in. I would not wear a mask. I wore, it's like everybody else. I wore one for the first 2 weeks.
Right.
I was in New York when the outbreak.
Yeah, you didn't know what was
occurred.
going on, and so you put it on, and then you're like, wait a minute.
But I owned a lab, so like we actually had equipment and like scientists, and they told me right away, like, there's no way this will stop a virus. And I'm like, well, I'm not wearing it.
Yeah.
And stuff thrown at me, names called at me. I had people would honk if you were walking down the street without a mask on. They would honk, put your mask on. I mean, it was insane.
Oh, wow. And here in Texas, it was a lot different. After 2 weeks, it was like we were honking at the people who were wearing them.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, what's wrong with you? Yeah. Take that thing off, you idiot.
Well, we all are sheep, right? But we do have different shepherds,
That's
you know. And I think that maybe the people in LA, their shepherd may be, Time Warner / whatever, NBC, Universal,
Lionsgate Films.
Lionsgate.
Oh, I lived right by I was in Burbank, so I could walk to Time Warner from where to the studio from where I lived, and everyone lost their job.
Yeah,
Everyone. And and all the houses were selling in like 10 minutes for 20% over market, and everyone's like, there's a real estate boom. And I'm like, there's something going on. Like, do you not see this? No one is working, yet houses are being bought in cash.
Yeah.
And like, that's when I started searching titles and seeing, Xinjiang Corporation buying the house. And I'm like, all right, we got to get out of here.
Yeah.
We got to get out of here.
Yeah, the Chinese own a lot.
China.
Sometimes I just miss the way he says China.
I do. I do every time.
Yeah, that's why I have it on there.
Why can't he come back? I hope he comes back.
He'll be
You think he's coming back?
He'll be back.
I think by this time next year, 91% of this population will want him back. Think of how bad it's going to be in 1 year. Seriously, think about 1 year from now.
Oh, yeah.
The last 3 years building up.
Think how bad it's going to be 1 month from now.
It could be really bad. I mean,
multiply that by 12.
yeah, I can do that. I don't know. They're really hyping up September. They're acting like September's just going to be the worst.
Economically, November will probably be the worst, but it'll kick off. It'll kick off soon.
Yeah,
it'll kick off soon.
And then December will come in, and everybody will be like, "Oh, it was a great Christmas. Everybody still spent money."
Yeah.
I don't know how it happened, but somehow, some way, Americans find a way to make all the retailers' coffers full and happy.
Because they dropped their prices by 90% to actually move product.
Well, first they hike them up. They hike them up 500%, and then they
Serious
slash
question.
the prices.
Either one of you ever been to a Black Friday event? I never have been.
I've not. My wife has been to several, but
I refuse.
I've not. Yeah.
Nothing in this world is important enough to me to save money on, to be around thousands of people.
Crazy people.
Crazy people. It's never. I don't care about stuff to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really care. Stuff does nothing for me.
But you wanted to work on the New York Stock Exchange? I mean, come on.
Well, that's not
It's
stuff.
all about prices.
That's literally trading vapor, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is. But interesting thing about the New York Stock Exchange and Black Friday, it's baked in like 3 weeks in advance.
Yeah.
You can always tell the projections come in early. And those numbers coming in right now are not very good. They start to analyze in midsummer, seeing where we're at. So we have a little over $1 trillion in credit card debt in this country right now. 61% of the nation right now is currently living paycheck to paycheck. 21% are near the poverty line. And yet we hear on TV how good the economy is.
Yeah.
Well, if home prices drop another 5%, I heard that 200,000 houses will be underwater.
That wouldn't shock me at all. I mean, what we're seeing right now in the housing market is probably threefold worse than we saw in 2008.
Yeah.
And in 2008, I was running a business that was saving homes. I knew it from the inside. And I can tell you right now, the numbers are astronomically worse.
You're saving homes?
Yeah. For people who are losing their homes, they would hire us. We'd negotiate with their banks.
Oh, okay. I kind of did something like that. I negotiated credit card debt for a while, which is interesting.
It's a needed business.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, it
now
is.
In particular, yeah. I mean,
yeah, they take
Go
that.
back into it. There's $1 trillion to negotiate.
There's tons of it. I mean, it's a really tough business to be in. I was talking to, one of the guys I was talking to was like this dentist from Alabama who had $300,000+ in credit card debt.
Whoa. Not unusual today.
Yeah, but his wife had died of cancer and his daughter had died of cancer, and he lost all this money starting his dental practice, and that's how he got all this credit card debt, and then the interest and the late fees and the penalties and all this stuff. But we were able to get his credit card debt negotiated down to like $40,000.
Wow.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
But they take that debt that you have, and most of it is late fees and interest, right? So their cost basis on it is already like, let's say $100,000. for that $300,000.
Right.
And they take that $300,000 and they sell it to a collection agency, and they write off the $300,000. So it becomes a tax asset to them. And essentially it's a tax asset worth essentially $100,000, right?
Yeah.
Because they've written off the 300. And then the same thing happens with the collection agency and so on and so forth. A couple times gets from a collection agency to a law firm, which is just another glorified collection agency essentially.
Right.
And then they're willing to negotiate. You just say, I'm going to stop paying. I'm not going to make any more of your payments. And then once you have money, because we told our clients just to pay yourself that money, that monthly payment. And then once you have a chunk of money, like $20,000 or whatever it is, then you go and you talk to them about what you can negotiate.
Yeah.
You know, and once you get that in writing that they'll forgive all your debt for that, then it's game over. And then you just basically send letters to the credit bureaus in order to clean up your credit score, and you're back on the road again.
Well, our friend Scott was telling us on Saturday at a party about how he handled medical debt.
Oh, yeah.
So he had a heart attack, and I think he had like $78,000 medical bill. It's ridiculous what they charge for this stuff. We went through how Big Pharma jacks up prices by pre-baking in marketing fees and all these. Like, who needs a marketing fee for a drug, right? I mean,
yeah, if it works, they're going to want it.
And you know, what do I care with the drug? I go to a doctor and they're prescribing it to me anyway. Why do I need to be advertised to?
Yeah, Martin Shkreli.
Right? They do that so they can build in the bigger prices for insurance, and then that way you pay your copay for it, and the insurance picks up this massive premium. So what he did, he got sent to a collection agency, and he asked the collection agency that they need to get his medical records and in order to verify that it's actually his debt. So they did, and he said, well, now I don't owe it to you because you just violated the HIPAA code.
Ooh.
That was the most genius thing I'd ever heard in my life.
Wow.
Nice.
That was genius.
That is genius.
That was a great trick.
Good for him.
Absolutely. I keep thinking with the COVID thing that people will be able to people are violating your HIPAA code, you know?
That's going to come around.
Yeah.
Trust me.
It seems like that's a huge
It's just a matter of
waiting to
time
happen,
before
yeah.
it's still too new. It's just a matter of time before people start figuring out how to.
It's a future
Fight
industry created by the Farm Bureau of Labor and Statistics. I mean, that's who creates a lot of these industries that are, you know, these little budding industries, is the Farm Bureau of Labor and Statistics. And they put out these white papers that say, hey, you know, you need to, you know, start reading up on these subject matters, you know, in order to boost that microeconomy,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So I don't know.
Well, let's get on Hope of the Wicked, guys.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
So
Yeah.
That book changed my life.
yeah, mine too, honestly. You know, I was already kind of down the path of awakening.
Oh, you were way down when I referred that book to you. You
Yeah,
were way down.
I was. You know, I had already seen all the things and read all the things, and
I've been
but
wearing
I
on you for a while by then.
Yeah. Well, so Luke originally sent me Fall of Cabal.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I originally
Great series.
Yeah. And
really well done.
And I waited on it for a while. Like I was like, it's like it's 8 hours. It's like, I'm not going to go through all this, you know?
It's a
Like,
big
it's
ask.
like-
Hey, watch this video.
Yeah. It's like, he's
It'll
like,
take
hey,
you a
so-
week.
Yeah. I'm like, it's
how
a
about a
lot,
short?
It's a lot
You got
of
a
work,
short?
you know? I was traveling for work, you know, I was still like, you know, in the thick of like
Yep.
my career, doing a lot of travel and such. And, you know, it's pre-COVID.
Oh, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like COVID hits, and then you find yourself at home, you know, with more time. And then I'm like, oh, like let me watch this. So I started watching it, started reading some things, and you know, then we met and had dinner and started just talking. But that was like I was already down the path of, you know, finding God at that point. And you know, my conversation with Eric was, I would say, a turning point for me, or I should say it was an acceleration point. It
Be
wasn't
careful
really a
with that
turning
hand
point.
symbol. Everybody online is going to think you're a Satan worshiper for making the OK sign.
Oh, are you?
This, like, yeah, no, whoa, yeah.
I'm so tired of this. Everyone's like, you know, that's
Oh,
what,
yeah.
like I'm part Italian.
I-
Everyone does that when they talk.
I
yeah.
thought that was just that joke that you got somebody to look at it and then
So
you
they
punch
punch
you in
you
the arm.
So
Yeah.
my 14-year-old does that all the time. Dad, look, bam.
Yeah.
That's the slug bug.
I
When
know,
there
I
are no
can't,
slug
like-
bugs.
I just like to make fun of the overall paranoia that's involved right now.
It's
Anyone who's worried
ridiculous.
about these things is probably not in touch with God.
Yeah, totally. And so I think, you know, I also talk like Trump too.
Yeah.
I talk and I kind of move my hands and I kind of do this and
From watching Trump so much.
probably it's
Maybe.
probably what it is. It's just like, you know, like you emulate people that you are a fan of. So at any rate, it was an acceleration point for me because like our conversation just like helped me really truly understand like the meaning of God in your life. And so we got on the book, and you were like, have you ever read this book? And I was like, I've never heard of this book. Oh yeah, you got to read this book. It's amazing. You're going to learn, you know a lot of stuff, but you're going to learn a lot of stuff from it. And man, did I learn a lot of stuff from it. Like I knew, like we were talking about this, like, you know, a lot of the information, like when you start going down the rabbit holes, you start to learn a lot about, you know, history of education. You start to learn a lot about the Illuminati. You start to learn a lot about, you know, and you hear that you read the name Adam Weishaupt, and you're like, oh, like, and then you start reading
his picture.
the book.
You're like, he looks like a totally nice guy.
Yeah, and then you start reading the book, and you're like, wait a minute, there's some things in here I had no idea about, you know, or hey, that's connected to this, and this is connected to this, and now like all of this stuff is like tied together, and there's
intimately
this, like,
connected too.
Intimately connected, and that's the crazy part about it. It's that people, I think, and that's why we're doing the review, because it's like a lot of people, I think they'll either hear us talking about the New World Order, right. And what that is, and some may understand it, some may not, and then others may have an inkling to go out and maybe do a little bit of research on their own. You know, you plant a seed and people kind of like water it, and maybe the plant will grow.
It'll germinate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Germination's important.
Absolutely. And
the Germans.
And we started talking about it because I think it's important for people to be able to make the connections. And, you know, we encourage everyone to read the book. Here it is. So go get this book and read it.
Fairly hard to find. Fairly expensive. Or paperback.
I just got a brand new copy on Amazon for $30, which I was.
Don't tell me that. I paid $149 for
my first copy I paid $80 for.
Yeah. It was expensive, and especially in 2020. It was really expensive.
And it has like, this is the first clean copy I got, and it's got like a little blood stain on it right there. I don't know if that's blood, but it looks like blood, so I think it's kind of cool.
It's coffee.
It's probably just coffee.
We'll call it coffee.
Could be coffee.
Coffee is blood.
Or a kid put the corner in his nose.
One of those things. It's definitely something.
Possible.
But
I
yeah,
have 4 of them.
It was a used, good, you know, very good condition copy. But man, when I read it, I was like, all of the connections started to make sense to me, and that's when I really understood. Like, this has been a thing that's been in the works for hundreds of years.
I think the book starts with the education piece at around 1830.
Yeah.
You know, he
John Dewey
cites and references everything in the education. It starts with education. Even the way he wrote it was very systematic, starting with the educational system. The part that got me was the chapter on the occult.
Oh, yeah.
Because you learn that, you know, Marx was a self-professed Satanist. He talks about his school, the paper he wrote in school about him confessing to worship Satan. But the occult part, because at that point in time when I had read that, I had started learning about, you know, the child trafficking and all those issues. And I just couldn't figure out why.
Yeah.
Like, when you're really thinking about, like, why do these people, who's attracted to a child?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, of course, there's always, you know, weirdos and perverts.
Right.
But seeing so many people, why is that? Yeah. And that chapter in the book where he talks about he specifically says that the purpose of the darkness is to steal innocence. And then you're like, that's what they're doing.
That's an aha
That's
moment.
what they're doing. It's not even about pleasure with the child. It's about cruelty. You know, these people base their life on cruelty to innocence. And then you get deeper in the rabbit. Beyond that, I mean, this is where I found Jesus. You know, as I found Jesus understanding how dark the darkness was. And that's what all people are doing right now. They're starting to come to God because they're seeing the devil in their life.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, the time we live in where all the shadows are trying to overcome humanity, and then people have these light that's just holding it back. And seeing the revival. Somebody asked me on my chat today, you know, is this end times or is this a revival? In Trinity, I wish I would have had more time at work to type to that, but I was working. I am a working man. And in the middle of the day, I wanted to respond and say both. In reality, like, end times creates revelation or creates revival. And, you know, biblically, we're in like every book. I mean, the book of Revelations kind of rewinds the entire Bible philosophically. But the most important thing to think about with that is, like, I'm seeing revival. That was my answer. I think we're seeing the largest revival in the history of mankind. And it's books like Hope of the Wicked that were printed. That book should be in every school, every high school class, every senior in high school should be reading that book. Period. And it's written eloquently like a textbook.
It is like a textbook. Yeah.
It's beautifully written for school.
Yeah.
It is.
And I started thinking to myself, I'm like, I ask people all the time. That was a great question she asked, because most people just assume I don't know. I have no idea where God has us in his timeline. I have no idea.
I don't think
No,
anybody
and he
does.
states that, I believe, in the Bible.
Yeah. Not even the son shall know.
Yeah.
Right. Not know the hour or the moment.
Right.
And in the middle of the whole conversations I've had, literally in the last like 3 weeks, I get asked this kind of, where are we at in the Bible, Eric? I don't know.
Yeah.
You could say we're definitely in 2 Thessalonians with deception. We're definitely in Ezekiel with what's happening in Damascus. I mean, we're seeing so many different pieces of the Bible playing out. But in the middle of it all, because of Hope of the Wicked, I started to see the importance. I just tied this together on my testimony the other day, is that it states that only those who are as innocent as a child shall enter the gates of my kingdom. So if the devil just steals innocence all day long from all of us, from birth to death, which starts with, what do kids get right now? Like 71 injections the moment they're born?
It's insane.
It's
yeah.
insane.
We were just talking about this.
Yeah, I think it's higher than that, actually.
Yeah.
Higher than
Maybe not
71.
the moment they're born, no, but
Within
like
their first
between
year.
0 and 18 years, that's over 100.
Over 100.
I believe so, yeah. That's what I remember.
Well, I was just teaching my son this the other day. Actually, last night we went and saw Brandon Lake. We went to a Christian concert to see Brandon Lake, Phil Wickham. And the interesting thing was, I have never experienced anything like that. There was 11,000 people on their feet worshiping for 2.5 hours.
Really?
It was just amazing to see.
Yeah.
But then we got home and we were talking about, the pharmaceutical world and all that stuff. And I said, listen, the word pharma or pharmaceutical stems from the word pharmakia. And in ancient Greece, pharmakia translated directly to the word witchcraft. So you can actually attribute what's happening today, like it says in Hope of the Wicked. He talks chronologically. Right?
Yeah.
When you go through the whole 1600s up to the 1800s, the educational system, you start working through, he even goes through the Clinton era.
Right.
I mean, it goes through pretty much up to that timeline where he was finishing the book.
Yeah.
The one thing he didn't cover was the role that pharmaceuticals play. Right? Like if I'm sure you've all heard Paul Harvey, If I Were the Devil.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, we played it on one of our shows not too long ago, actually.
Yeah.
It's fascinating
Yeah.
how accurate that was. That's from like 1967.
Unbelievably accurate.
And the whole purpose was get people on pills,
Yeah.
right, to dope them up and to make illness that you can't cure, lure you into, what do you say? I will be able to undress you in public and lure you into bed to give you diseases that there is no cure for. I mean, it was, when you start seeing look at all these little nuggets we've had from people throughout the course of history. And one of them that'll probably be forgotten is this guy, Ted Flynn from Hope of the Wicked.
Not if we have anything to say about it.
That's when he told me you guys were doing that. I was like, listen, I gotta hop on here. That book changed my life.
He's like, it's time. It's time.
I mean, if you look at back to the pharmaceutical industry, I mean, if you look at the chemical makeup of a lot of these pharmaceuticals, a lot of them come from the oil and gas industry, essentially, right?
Yeah.
They're all hydrocarbons,
Sure.
right? Like fluorine and
it's all petroleum based.
petroleum-based
pharma.
products. Yeah, because
And talk about the book being like the whole process of the creation of the New World Order over hundreds of years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Since the 1600s, effectively, like before the U.S. was able to secede from the UK, and during
Somewhat.
the Revolutionary War,
Theoretically.
to a degree, in theory, right?
right.
But the connections of all of industry revolve around big oil, right? It's all big oil. There's petroleum in our food. There's petroleum in our drugs. There's petroleum in the plastics and the moldings and everything else that
People
we
are
use in
vaping
our
petroleum
homes.
every day.
Yeah, it's
petroleum-based products.
It's in everything. It's
Yeah,
in everything.
butane.
Microplastics in our foods, in our drinks, in our water.
Yeah, my
Don't bash it. That's how I pay my bills.
microplastics. Yeah. My professor in college, Dr. Manzer, he worked for one of these big chemical companies. I think it's Dow. But he asked the entire class of like 200 people, what do you think Dow Chemical, I think it was Dow Chemical, it may have been somebody else, but what do you think Dow Chemical's number one thing that they make money from? And everybody's raised their hand like, chemicals, and everything else, right? Like, and he's like, nope, it's byproducts from chemicals.
Certainly.
So they make the chemicals and then they got all this leftover stuff that they don't know what to do with.
Right.
So they, they use it and make it into something to sell.
Well, you want a path. You want a path. Stay on your path. New World Order.
just the connection between all of that. It's very, very similar to the connections that Ted Flynn makes throughout the book, right?
Mm-hmm.
With the different connections between, the like Adam Weishaupt in the creation of the Illuminati in 1776, and then the translation into all the wars and the revolutions that took place in France and Europe throughout, and then further down the line, you have the creation of the, Council on Foreign Relations, the Bilderberger Group, and the Trilateral Commission, and all, the Committee of 300, and all these other, groups that are.
He goes into such detail.
It's
foreign
insane, dude.
relations.
And he gives all the names, and he brings in like Kissinger and all the work that he did, and he talks about Bush and the stuff that he did, and he talks about Clinton and his involvement and how he gets. It's crazy. Then we were talking about the next book. He references Carol Quigley's book. Tragedy and Hope quite a bit, which I have purchased but have not read because it's 1,200 pages, and I'm like panicked because it's so thick. And
1,200 pages.
It's 1,200 pages, and I also have Manly P. Hall's Secret Teachings of All Ages, which is also it's like 850 pages, and like that's a thick book too. And
One of the most famous Masons of all time, right?
Yeah. He was. I think
he
Manly Hall is a 33rd degree Freemason,
Yeah,
and I think he wrote about all the secret
they're in
teachings of. Yeah, they're in everything.
And you can go.
Did you know that there's one in our town?
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
I didn't see it until, I don't know,
Yeah.
2 weeks ago. I had no idea. It's like buried behind the new coffee shop down there.
Oh, is that where it is?
Yeah.
By
Had no idea.
1418 Coffee.
Yeah.
That's where we do our Bible study on Friday
And
mornings.
we were in Salina, downtown Salina. There's one right there. I mean, I think there's 900 of them in Texas.
Oh, I bet.
It's crazy how little the world knows about. I mean,
Well,
they don't know anything about
Even
masonry.
even the people who are, actual Masons, don't quite know, right? Like the people who are like the early initiates,
Yeah.
like
It's like Scientology.
they don't even know.
There's
Like they know a
rings.
couple of the handshakes, and they.
I was in
you
LA.
know,
Oh, you want to go to Scientology? I'll go into Scientology.
Oh,
Holy
yeah?
cow, is that a weird? There's this. Here's the thing about America. America has been taught that it's plain white vanilla. Mom, pop, apple pie. The whole. It's actually not. It's a swirling infestation of secret societies and weird occult-based religions. Even a lot of the Christian churches have been infiltrated, right?
For sure.
I had a conversation with a pastor not too long ago, and he said, we have an open and affirming church. And I said, what does that mean? And he's like, well, everyone's welcome here. I go, good, open. What about this affirming part?
Yeah.
He's like, well, we try to affirm people's lifestyle. And I go, well, that's not. So you didn't read the book that you're teaching? You didn't read the part, about an abomination and all that kind of stuff. A man shall not lay with a man. And the guy looked at me like I was the devil, and I'm like, mirror,
yeah.
mirror. You're teaching people completely anti-biblical values.
Yeah.
Well, there's a business of Christianity, and I think the biggest one is Lifeway Ministries, right? They're out in Nashville. It's a big organization out in Nashville, Tennessee, but they just basically make Christianity into a business and religion into a business, and they come in and help you run a successful church. To a certain extent, you do need good business acumen to run a church in order to, preach to a congregation. You need to be good with.
You got to keep your lights on,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. But they get really, really advanced in their ability to.
I don't have any problem with people teaching churches how to run like a business. I have a problem with churches trying to run themselves like they're a woke corporation. That's what I have a problem with.
Yeah.
I'm an anti-mega church guy. He and I go to the little Rock Creek down the street here, just biblical only, great church, just Bible. There's no religion. There's no redeeming.
Right.
And for me, seeing the church, plus this period in history right now where it's so hard, everybody hates people who make money. Like, people need to make money. Churches need to keep their lights on.
Yeah.
Patriots need money. Why do you think we're all in the situation right now? Because all the money's in the hands of the evil. Money is energy. We need to learn how to reclaim it.
Yeah.
God's people need to have ammunition, and this war is being fought with spiritual warfare and economics. Period. It's a fascinating time where people are.
The squeeze is real.
Now, the love of money is the root of all evil, but it doesn't say that money is. It says that the love of money is.
It's the root of all kinds of evil.
You have to use that money in an appropriate way. If
Yeah.
you use that money to go out and, line your front porch with gold medallions. You know, I mean, that's a little bit different, right?
Right.
I don't think that that front walkway would make it very long.
Yeah, panhandlers out there on your front porch.
Just real quick, I got some stats on the vaccine doses. So my beautiful wife recently attended the Children's Health Defense show in Dallas recently with Texas.
That's a couple weeks ago,
Texas
right?
Vaccine, organization, and the dose history for vaccines used to be 11 shots and 24 doses in 1983, up to about 15 years. So most of them were up to 4 years, and then you got one shot when you turned 15. Now, in 2023, from ages, from pregnancy, not even from like 2 months of age back in 1983, it was like 2 months of age is when you got your first dose. Now it's during pregnancy, you get influenza, Tdap, and COVID-19 if you're intelligent enough to say yes to that.
That was an IQ test, by the way. I'm sorry. All of COVID was an IQ test.
They now are at 59 shots, 77 total doses between the 3 at pregnancy, 1 at birth, then a slew of them at 2 months, slew at 4 months, 6 months, 8, 10, 12 months, 15 months, 18 months, 30, 42, 4 years, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, 11, 12, 14, 16, 17, 18. I mean, it just goes on and on and on.
Well over 100 by the time you're an adult.
I mean, if you take the flu vaccine and the COVID vaccine and that, it's
There's a lot.
Yeah.
And they all make money, I mean,
They all make money.
and they all make money for all those guys at the National Institutes of Health.
Yeah.
Each one of them gets $250,000 if they participated in those things coming to market. Like Tony Fauci, Anthony, he's making. That's how he's making money. Like that's why he's the highest paid federal employee, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they said that he made like $13 million during the pandemic or something.
He bought like a mansion in like Pennsylvania.
And how do people? Crazy. Listen? This is a confusing world we live in. This world is horrifically deceitful, right? Like we just talked about the infiltration of secret societies, everything in life, horribly deceitful. So I don't blame people for supporting bad ideas. It's not really their fault. They're just not thinking through it. I mean, if you really look at a human being, most people just want to listen, I just want to earn some money. I just want to have some shelter. I want to have peace of mind. I want to raise my kids. I don't really want to think about these things. Now that's been bred into us, and Obama was the master of this.
Brainwashed or bred?
Oh, God, the stuff that this guy would say. I remember sitting. He got interviewed and he said, "Well, that's part of the Constitution." He said, "Oh, you mean that outdated document?"
Mm-hmm.
Or he would say, like, gold, what a relic. Nobody wants gold.
Mm-hmm.
And people buy into it, right? So think of all of the brainwashing. So the people on the left or right, whatever. There is no left, there is no right. You're either crazy or you're sane. That's kind of where we are. Even if you're sane, even if you're the sane people, the awake people,
Right.
they're starting to go crazy. They are starting to get paranoid and delusional. Like I watch it all every day, and I just try to pray as much as I can for people because everyone's losing their mind. This is 2 Thessalonians coming true, the lawless one. Mm-hmm. So if you look at guys like that and what they've done, how can someone on the other side go, no, I think it's totally okay for people like Obama to come in office. What was he worth? Like less than $1 million, way less, like 600,000 total net worth.
Well, yeah, that was part of his appeal, right? Like he's
a common man.
One, he's made that comment, and he specialized in constitutional law, right? Like in law school, right? And then 2, he drove like this beater of a car and never like cleaned himself up all that much. He just kind of looked like a vagabond, essentially, right? So he's a man of the people, right? He's just trying to look like regular Joe, And
that's why they said Trump would never get elected, because he has a gold toilet seat. I'm like, the weirdest thing about him. So these people, like, they have no problem with Obama. He's got, 3 houses. He deserves it. He was the president. He was the greatest. Like, don't you see that money has come out of your pocket?
Yeah.
People, like, money is what wakes people up. When you, like, right now, there's people waking up every day. With the stats that I can spit off the top of my head and where we are as a nation, you're going to start seeing more people lose more. And it's a sad thing. I would love to come on and be like some people online that are just fluff your ears all day. And, tomorrow Trump's going to ride in on a white horse and, we're going to have this whole new financial system by like 3 p.m. on Thursday.
Yeah.
It'll be cool. Don't worry. You don't have to pay your bills or it's just going to go away. And then like all of a sudden we'll have, this magic currency.
It'd be awesome, but it's not going to happen.
I mean, it just well, when things get difficult, people revert back. Like, imagine that the good part is that people's imaginations are coming back, right? Like a lot of people didn't have them.
Yeah.
Just didn't think about anything. And then all of a sudden, when everything's ripped away, you're like, well, I wish now I'm starting to think of what I want the world to be like now that it's so bad.
Life was a little too easy.
It's way too easy. The comfort, well, that's also in Hope of the Wicked, to provide comfort, right? Make things easy for people. That's how Marxism creeps in.
Yeah.
We're about to see something, I don't know when, and I hate people who say they know when, but this whole theory of thinking that everything tomorrow morning, if Trump's back in, it'll be great. We have bureaucratic processes to go through. Like, the Constitution actually still exists. That's what we're fighting for, is to maintain the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
It's the greatest document ever written by man, led by God, scripturally based. And in the middle of it all, you have to understand that it has processes. And all the constitutional writing has some sort of bureaucratic process behind it. So things take time, but we're in such the right direction, because if you read Hope of the Wicked, that was written in
99,
99.
That was published in 2000.
2000.
So
Right.
probably written in the late 90s.
23 years ago.
Yeah.
He has a footnote that comes out for 02, I believe.
I'd be interested to see how many more copies have been purchased now than then, right? I would, because he has
the
printed.
stats on it. Yeah, I know.
I bet more have been bought today. So we live through this time right now where people are starting to wake up and go, something's not right. That's where it starts. We all went through it. All of us in this room went through it. And now you have people who are starting that process right now. And we're already, 4 years. Some people, I talked to somebody who, remembers Paul Harvey saying, if I were the devil.
Your parents, right?
I remember listening to Paul Harvey all the time.
No, but he
on the
specifically
radio.
remembers if I were the devil segment, listening to it live.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And I'm like, what did you, he was like 9 or 10 years old. He's like, his dad talked about it for 3 or 4 weeks. So he remembered it as a kid. And he's like, I've been awake since basically like around Vietnam, like the end of Vietnam.
I bet, yeah.
Can you imagine the torment? I mean, I've been awake for years.
Yeah.
I'm pretty well acclimated. I can go in and out of the matrix as needed. I don't prefer to do so. I prefer to stay out of it at this point. But
Well, being awake, there's a huge like uptrend that occurs right out of the gate, right? Like, and then you just level off and things become normalized, right?
Yeah.
So for a guy like that that's been awake for that many years, this is just life, you know, and eventually it'll be that way for all of us, right? And I don't know. I've been awake for over a decade, long time, but
look at what, like, Hope of the Wicked is actually a great example of gauging whether or not today you should be pessimistic or optimistic about the world. Think of it. That's a book where basically this entire plan started in 1600s, before America existed. America then is created, George Washington talks about the flaws of the two-party system, all these other things. These people have taken 1 inch a year for hundreds and hundreds of years. And now they're trying to shove everything into the machine. That'll break the machine.
I agree.
But I always tell people the Great Reset and the Great Awakening are going to look exactly the same until one emerges.
Right.
And at this point in time, I hate when people say, get your popcorn or I'm comfy. How can you be comfy? Seriously. Like,
I'm never comfortable.
I wasn't trying to insinuate that you'd be comfortable. I just feel like it's normalized because that's your your mean average, right? Like that's your average of what
you have to
the environment you're living in is like.
Yeah, I agree. I think you have to figure out how to plug back into the matrix to survive.
You do.
Because if you don't figure it out, you're lost. Yeah. And you can't walk around feeling lost. You have to understand that there are bigger things at play.
We're not lost. We don't need a map.
There are
Pull over at the gas station. Ask them where to go.
There are bigger things at play that you can't even comprehend.
Oh, for sure.
Right? There are. I try to explain this in this way to people who are either maybe just starting to wake up or are black pilled, or they just don't really truly like think that anything's going to get better and it's just going to suck forever and we're just going to continue down this like shithole for the rest of our lives. And this is how I kind of try to like explain it to them. If we know what's going on, right? And look, I'm not saying I know everything that's going on, but I can read a book and I can read some history and I can read some information and I can like discern what is real and what's not real to an extent, right? Pretty good at it. If we have a general idea of what's happening, don't you think that there are these people in these higher levels of power in the world that feel that know more than we do and have the means of affecting change for the good of humanity and have decided to implement a strategy to do something? Because I know that if I had the means, me personally, because of the way I lean and the things I think and I value human life and I'm a follower of Jesus and not Satan, I would use my power and use my money and use all of the resources that I have at my disposal for the good of the human race. So
well,
there's tons of people.
So you're leveraging what you do.
100%. 100%. I just don't have the means of a Donald Trump or some of the people that he's plugged into. So there is something going on, and then there is a battle. There's a spiritual battle, and then there is an information battle. There is also a kinetic battle. A psychological battle. There's a lot of these. There's a lot of this different types of warfare that's happening across broad spectrums. And that's the way I try to explain it to people. It's like, look, if you feel like the world sucks, imagine someone who has the means to affect change thinking the same way that you do. What would you do if you had billions of dollars?
Well, I know some of those guys.
Right.
I work with investors, so I know some very high net worth people, and they are angry. They're just as angry as we are. What we're going to learn in the coming years is we're going to learn the 80-20 rule, right? Because right now you hear rich people. I think the best description I've heard of this in scripture, or actually religion, is poverty theology, right? Because God always talks about to serve the poor, to preach to the poor. So if you read the Bible incorrectly, you think that poor are good, rich are bad. That's poverty theology. However, that's exactly what will keep good people from ever having any control in the world, because money is energy, energy is power. And when we look at what's happening in the world right now, you can look at it and say, everything's an 80-20 rule. That's what keeps me sane, right? You can look at 80% of the FBI is probably awful, right? The CIA, all these places. Or I didn't say that on air. I meant the other agencies. But they're pretty.
Well, there's good and bad people, right?
But there are, and those good people in the world itself, the 80-20 is the opposite. 80% of the world is really good people, really solid people, and right now they are terrified. They're terrified for their family. They're terrified to find out if they can eat tomorrow. They have to trade between, do I get gas? Do I buy diapers? That's a horrible. I've been in these positions in my life. That's a terrible position to be in, but it's also very freeing. You're going to start to see a lot of people going, wow, that person really did something good. And they actually have a lot of means. You're absolutely correct. Those who have the means to affect an outcome or change, they want their kids to grow up in the same world they grew up in. The transgender stuff has really lit a fire under a lot of people. It's astounding to me that in the last 5 years of history, we've gone from common sense to whatever the heck this is that we live in, right? Yeah. It's just pathetic. It's pathetic. And it comes down to men. It comes down to men. Why aren't more men standing up for women in sports, like they're little girls? If there was a transgender on my daughter's team, believe me, hell would be raised upon that moment. And we just see, even my son has memorized, strong men create good times create weak men, weak men create bad times. He's memorized that. And I always tell him, which one do you want to be? You want to be the strong man or the weak man? What kind of times do you want to create? But understand, if you're a strong man, being strong will be created by bad times.
Mm-hmm.
We have to go through bad times to create strong men again. That's
what's happening right now.
That's exactly what's happening right now. Is you're seeing this, that's a revival of men are men, women are women.
Mm-hmm.
That's very biblically based. And the men who want to stand up for these things, I mean, you're seeing them. We know a ton of them around here. And it's not like people around here don't have means. Not like Donald Trump means, but there's means.
Mm-hmm.
And they're willing to put it to work.
Yeah. Just a bunch of magnets.
And I tell people all the time, I'm like, listen, you could have all the money in the world right now, but if we don't win this war, it's not going to matter. And they know that better than we do because they have a lot more to lose.
Yeah.
But when we see this reversal of trend from thinking rich people bad, poor people good, because it's 80-20 in both, and 80% of all of them are good people, generalized statement, people, that the 20% are just really loud and really scary. They're just really obnoxiously loud and very scary. And when we stand up to them, they cower like children.
Yeah.
We're watching. You're watching it. Every day of the week, you watch it.
Yeah, I think over the more recent history, that men in particular have just gotten to a point where they're more comfortable not doing anything, and just kind of letting it happen.
Well, that brings in a great topic of program.
Forget it.
How did we get there?
I don't want to deal with this shit.
Right. That's why people go to these 3-letter agencies, because they've been programmed to perceive that that's where their glory is, right?
Sure.
And that's what draws this 80% of people that have, bankrupt in ethics are going towards, because they're being led by, false gods, essentially.
Well, and then you have like Hollywood and, television networks and the sitcoms and all these things that have programmed us, AKA brainwashed us from the TV shows to say, you know what, being a rough and tumble Archie Bunker type guy is no longer
I watch it late night.
That's a good pull right there.
God,
That's no longer cool.
No.
You know what I mean?
That's
like,
evil.
Yeah, it's evil. He's an evil person. That was comedy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was comedy.
It was a hardworking father.
And by the way,
supported his family.
By the way, if you think about it, here's a mind bender for you. Meatball, his son-in-law, is one of the most loudmouth liberal scumbags on Twitter. Rob Reiner.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
He's a tool. And
I forgot all about it.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I forgot he is on Twitter.
He is, and
You
he's
mean X?
all over it, dude. And he hates every conservative there is. He can't stand Trump. He can't if you say anything about anything conservative,
I'm gonna go at him on Twitter now.
Yeah, he's so
it's over. It's over for you, Meatball.
But yeah, that's it. Like, and it started with that era, like right after the whole Archie Bunker era. I remember growing up watching Archie Bunker, laughing my butt off.
Jeffersons.
Yeah.
The Jeffersons. That's another
Spin-off
one.
out of
All of it.
All in the Family.
Yeah, all of it. And it went away. It all just went away.
But how? Where did it begin? Think back to our conversation. Let's tie it all together.
Well, I mean, it's been instituted over time. It
goes to one place.
Well, it's
the demasculization through sitcoms.
Family Ties.
No, Bosom Buddies.
Well,
with
that's
Tom
where transgender
Hanks.
began.
Okay.
Not began. Actually began with Tootsie.
Oh, Tootsie, yeah,
that.
Dustin Hoffman, yeah.
But if you think back to how did sitcoms create weak men? Think of since we talked about Masons infiltrating everything.
Yeah.
What famous Mason writes predictive programming? The Simpsons.
Oh, yeah.
Homer Simpson is a doofus.
Late
He is
80s.
a clown. He is
Early
not a
90s.
father.
Yeah.
He drinks too much. He hates his kid.
Married with children.
Yeah, Married with Children. Al Bundy with his hand in his pants.
80s,
Worthless shoe.
yeah.
They all began right there.
Fox.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right in the 80s.
Fox is
Who would
a
have known?
major contributor.
I know.
Rupert
Murdoch.
fucking Murdoch.
Unbelievable, man.
So think of it The Simpsons itself, by itself, was a primetime cartoon
Yeah.
for adults.
Right.
So part of this entire infiltration process has been the creation of immature adults, weak men.
Yeah.
Like Silent Weapons of Quiet Wars. I don't know if you ever read that.
No, but I just was listening to someone talk about this on a podcast earlier today. Yeah, Man in America, I think, was talking about it with his latest guest.
I'll send you a copy of the PDF. You can read it. It's fascinating. So their primary purpose was, and especially because it doesn't matter where you live. It really doesn't matter where you live in America. All you got to do, go spend some time in any neighborhood with any adults over the age of 40 and listen to their conversations and the way that they act.
Oh, yeah.
Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars accurately depicted what their purpose was, which is to create a maturity level of the average adult around an 8th grade level. So what would 8th graders do? They would watch cartoons, right, on prime time. They would watch dirty movies.
Mm-hmm.
They would, like we did in 8th grade, you try to curse wherever you can.
Yeah.
It wouldn't take steps
like
towards
8th
being
grade.
men.
It was like Top Gun, Karate Kid, Revenge of the Nerds.
We had the best 8th grades.
Yeah.
I mean, we really had the best content. Honestly, we did.
Goonies.
Goonies.
Yeah.
E.T.
Yeah.
I mean,
Rocky.
all program. I can go through programming on. And Aaron, our friend Aaron, could really dive into every one of those movies. He's a movie guy. But if you think about it, like every adult in this country, their expectation of maturity, which also goes back to biblical teachings, because Christ commands you're commanded to be mature in Christ. So everything reverts back to darkness and light, good, evil, God, the devil.
Yin and yang.
And yin and yang. That's what God created, was a world of duality and free will. That's
why the devil exists.
That's exactly why he'll never go away.
There is no good without evil.
That's correct. If there was no evil, you wouldn't know what good is.
Right.
You wouldn't. However, if there was just evil, one day you would certainly know what good is. One of my favorite movies is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the original one, not the Johnny Depp.
Of course.
And my favorite part is when he gives the gobstopper back,
mm-hmm.
and he puts his hand out and he goes, "So goes a good deed in a weary world, dreary world." And you started thinking, like, if you really rewind it, like, that's kind of what life is. Like, Charlie had integrity.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie was a man of his word, right? Like, I did something wrong, I'm returning it, even though Willie was cuckoo. But at the same time, we don't see movies like that anymore. And we're also kind of picked up. You want to create the degeneracy in society. This is an important thing. Degeneracy, rap music. I used to love rap music.
Yeah.
I used to love it.
Yeah.
I still listen to older stuff, but I have a 14-year-old. He listens to this stuff, and I don't understand a word they're saying.
Mumble rap is what it's called.
It's nonsense.
It's called mumble rap.
They literally put peanut butter in their mouth and record a rap. What would you do in 8th grade? You would put peanut butter in your mouth and rap.
Yeah.
Right? This immaturity level.
Yeah.
And then you throw in degeneracy. And then part of degeneracy is getting all of America or all of the world to root for the bad guy. Enter The Sopranos.
LeBron James.
Oh, yeah.
I thought you were going to say LeBron James.
Nice.
Well, him too, but The Sopranos.
Sopranos for sure.
Think of The Sopranos, right? Like you.
Oh, well, and Goodfellas and all the
Yes.
mobster movies.
Right.
I always hated those
All of
because my grandfather.
I loved them. I
Yeah.
honestly loved those movies. But now that I look back at them, I'm like, what was I thinking?
I loved them. They're entertaining for sure, but I don't know. My grandfather was rumored to potentially been knocked off from them potentially, right? And so I really got to thinking about that. And it just pissed me off that everybody's glorifying
see
these
that, yeah.
mobsters, you know?
Yeah.
And then I had a client, I was a financial analyst for UBS, Payne Weber, for a few years. And I had a client whose ancestors got killed, and he was a doctor, and they got killed by Bonnie and Clyde when they were going through. And
Oh, wow.
and they just got pissed when they got glorified, you know,
Yeah,
Bonnie and
right.
Clyde, and all these villains that are being glorified. And that's a major crisis.
Well,
That those are the people we're looking up to, right?
And then the other
Even
one is like-
superheroes are a problem that we're looking up to because these are
Absolutely.
people that don't exist.
Right.
You're praising and you're glorifying somebody that doesn't even exist and isn't even real. So
Yeah.
I mean, how can any other true role model like, you know, Eric or Jeremy or, you know, Daniel or any good guy, you know, ever be that important to a young boy's upbringing, right? Like, because you're not Superman, you can't throw balls of lightning across, you know, the universe.
But
So
here's a
what's the
news
problem?
flash. Nobody can.
Right, exactly. That's the thing.
Maybe.
Right.
So there's an interesting theory behind the superhero phenomenon, is the fact that it's based upon the powers of the fallen angels.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Right? So that's a way of glorifying the fallen angels, those who defied God and followed Satan to earth, fell like
Right.
lightning. So when you see these things, everything, we had a great conversation a few weeks ago, and like everything we talk about, he would just go, it's depopulation, right?
Every time, like
Every time.
they'd all start talking, and it was like there's 4 or 5 of us, and they'd start having a conversation. I'd be like, you know what that's tied to, right? Depop.
Yeah.
And he's right.
And I was right every single time. If you really thought about it, it was all about depopulating.
Everything on the industry leads back to porn, and every topic leads back to depopulation.
100%, dude.
Well, you think about it, it's all intertwined. So you use content to lower the maturity level. You use content to make people, like every commercial, every TV show, every movie, the dad is the doofus.
Mm-hmm.
The dad is the doofus. What happened to Clint Eastwood, John Wayne, like men's men? They disappeared in content.
Except for Tim Allen's stuff. Tim
Tim
Allen
Allen.
was the only one, and like his shows were
Clint
like
Eastwood was the last one.
yeah,
And I don't even know about him.
the Tim Allen show, Last Man Standing. He was not a doofus, and he was he had all daughters and and a wife, but he was conservative.
Yeah,
a dude.
Well, they still exist. They're just not sensational.
He owned like a Bass Pro Shops equivalent. Like
and nobody watched that show.
Yeah, I watched it. I thought it was great. It's fantastic. It's like the only
But the shows they
show
watch are
worth
like
watching
Modern
lately.
Family with like
Yeah.
the gay
brother
couple
and and like with the kid and
Isn't Al Bundy in that show?
yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Actually,
There's another Al Bundy, and he's the
Yeah.
weak father. Like he says
Yeah.
funny stuff. I watched like 10 of them at one point. And I was like, this is not. But that's the new normal. That's another show they made with gay people, right? Like New Normal. I love the term "everything is fake and gay" because it may be
Mhm.
at this point in time. Like, it's a reality. But if you look at the degenerate, like how degenerate the world has gotten, like how much sin is accepted in the world today.
everywhere. It's everywhere.
And I was part of it.
Yeah,
I'm still part. We all
yeah,
are.
of
We're all
course.
sinners. But at the same time, if you really, really rewind and just, that's what waking up is. When you can take off the rose-colored glasses and not get angry and not lose your temper or anything, and you can just look at a show. Now my wife's doing it, right? So I'll admit this on air, like against my wishes, she actually took my daughter and 3 girls to go see the Barbie movie.
Oh yeah, my wife and daughter went to go see it too.
Yeah, I mean,
With like a friend and one of her daughters.
it is what it is. And in the middle of I was at work. It was like the last few days of summer before school. She took them there, and she was sending me. She was bootlegging with her phone on the screen and like sending me clips of it.
Yeah.
And I have them still. They're just, the men in there were just so emasculated.
Oh, I bet.
There was transgender people. And she was laughing out loud. And then I thought, God, I hope my daughter doesn't fall into this trap. And I come home, and the girls are swimming in the backyard, and I jump in the pool with them, and I'm like, hey, how was the movie? And all 3 of these little girls go, it was so gay. They're 10. Like,
Really?
it was so gay.
Really?
And like why is, remember when we grew up, that was what everyone said, this is so gay.
Yeah.
And then that was like, you can't say that.
Can't say that.
Yeah, no.
Like that's when censorship.
Faux pas.
Yeah, it really got bad at that point. And then
Yeah.
people, I think it was, didn't Trump in like his 2nd or 3rd speech, he was like, listen, political correctness is destroying this country.
Uh-huh.
And political correctness is actually built into The Hope of the Wicked, where he talks about how they would censor language through people's goodwill.
Yeah.
Right? Like we all want to be good people. We all do. But we have to read the Bible and understand that there's a certain breaking point.
Yeah.
We have to read history. I guess Winston Churchill said, appeasement is like feeding the crocodile, hoping it eats you last.
Mm-hmm.
So the more you appease everything, you're just kind of like, this is eventually going to devour me. And so like I'm pretty uncensored with people. I'll just say what's on my mind. I love when people say weird stuff to me because it's not weird to me. And they always kind of look at me weird when they say it. I mean, you know better than anybody. I mean, literally, people come with the craziest stuff. We'll be at a party and somebody's like, hey, you think this guy's a reptilian? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what he is.
I don't know.
I know the way he acts is not human, and I totally believe that there are definitely non-humans here.
Yeah.
Shapeshifters.
On planes being yelled at by pretty girls.
Yeah.
That was one of the funniest things that's happened lately. I mean, let's just be.
Oh, yeah.
So in that staged environment of the airplane with the lady with her 2 fingers and all that other stuff, that MFer isn't real. Like the overhead cabins were empty.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm a business person, so I fly
Mhm.
often. When was the last time you saw an empty overhead bin?
Never. How about never?
Pretty rare.
Yeah.
Pretty rare.
Yeah, I mean,
Especially on a packed plane. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there wasn't an empty seat,
Right.
but there was an empty overhead
I know.
container.
Yeah.
Never.
That seems weird to me.
It is weird. That whole thing was
But
weird.
my favorite part of all this stuff, because this is so much fun. Actually, what we're going through, and I don't know how deep you are into it, but we're pretty deep to, like, I love watching everything that happens and watching people. I love watching people's brains come to life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I remember watching my brain come to life and go, whoa, just kind of zip over here, and this is the way it is. So the sad part is that there's a lot of, and I'm getting the good part, 'cause the sad part is not fun, but the sad part is that when you wake up and you start realizing all the stuff we're talking about, which is like literally surface level. Like, if we want to get deep, let's go. Like, I got nothing else to do.
That's another show. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the surface level stuff, when you look at it, you sift through it, people will, when you wake up, you isolate.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Oh yeah.
Isolate. And then you start reaching out and trying to find other people who are thinking the same, reading the same.
I warned Jeremy of that when he was awakening. I was like, John, just be careful with this content, because a lot of people have this desire to isolate.
But
right?
it didn't happen to me.
Because I told you about it.
Yeah. He warned me about it. We talked a little bit about this too when we first met. I was like,
I isolated.
I was
isolated anyways.
Yeah. I didn't isolate at all. Like I still went out to parties, and I was cautious about who I spoke to, and I wasn't like going into a party being like, dude, if there's like reptiles on this fucking planet? Like, I wasn't like bashing people over the head with like UFOs and aliens and all this other crazy stuff.
You can't.
But you can't do that. But so like,
I would
plant seeds though, right? Because I was like, look, I was like, the whole point here is
depends.
If I'm awake, like other people should be waking up. Like this isn't just me. Like, and I knew other people were, and I was like, I'm just gonna like drop little seeds along the road that I'm walking on, and like some will grow and some won't.
Farmer Jeremy.
I still remember going into
Freedom Farmers.
Going into our office when Nord Stream 1 and 2 blew up. I walked in and they're like, "Hey, did you see this?" And I go, "Yeah, we did that."
Yeah.
Like, right, I don't hesitate.
Yeah.
We did that. Like,
100%. Yeah.
Like, I just state my opinion or fact. They are different, right? There are certain facts, there are certain opinions. But the thing about isolation is that you isolate right away, you get very lonely, and then you start to hopefully want to push back out into the world, and you will find people like you, especially today. People today, go for it. There's a big welcoming wagon for you.
Yeah.
But the sad part is, as people go from blasting their brain, isolating, they always go back in online, right? Not surrounded by real people that'll challenge them, which is a good thing for you. They go into the online echo chambers.
Yeah.
And then they go into the online echo chambers, and they're still isolated, and that echo chamber becomes their real world. And in their real world, they become super paranoid because they have nobody in the real world to talk to.
Right.
So any little thing that challenges their opinion like throws them off. On the other end of the spectrum, you have the other people who are like, yeah, okay, we live in the devil's world. Everything is a lie. Everything that we deal with is designed to imprison and enslave us. Let's have some fun with this, right? Let's just go out and entertain people, right? Let's just go out and like, I'm going to impress you with how much stuff I know that you don't know, and I'm going to make it funny along the way.
Yeah.
Humor is so important to this whole process. I mean, if you really think about the biggest wake-up artists in the world are comedians.
Oh yeah, totally.
They're the best. Jim Brewer's incredible.
He's
Always
unbelievable.
have been.
Yeah.
He's incredible. And I love like stand-up comedy is like, if I didn't want to go out for the night and somebody's like, hey, I got tickets to stand-up, I'll put on clothes and go.
Yeah.
I don't even care if I'm tired. Like, I'll still go.
Yeah.
But we have to be able to re-assimilate as people, and to be able to go, he's awake, he's not awake. Let's go out and have a beer or get a bite to eat, and just force, like we did the other night.
Yeah.
Let's just force this person to sit in our conversation and hear us talking intelligently, and they're just going to go, man, what they're saying is crazy.
Yeah.
But they're not.
Yeah.
Like, they're saying it like it's the truth, because it is the truth.
Yeah. Right.
And that's the fun part of it all.
It is.
Like I spent, when I got here, I spent like a year and a half just doing stuff. I didn't work. I mean, I couldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, I lost everything.
Yeah.
And when I got here, I was just like, okay, well, I've lost everything. If everything's falling to pieces around me, let's try to pick up a couple pieces.
Yeah.
And along the way, I've met some really awesome people. But the bottom line is that what we know 3 years ago was so offensive to people. Like, what do you mean? What? You don't believe in COVID? Like, no, I believe there's something going around, but I'm in LA with 78,000 homeless people, and I haven't seen a single dead homeless people who roll around in their feces, right, at night, who literally pee in jars
and
who
shoot heroin,
eat out of garbage cans. Like
pee's really sterile. It's actually pretty good.
it's nutritional.
Urea.
Fully filtered.
Urea.
Yeah, fully filtered. Yeah.
But if you really think about it, that's what I kept telling people. I'm like, there's definitely, there's something going around.
Yeah.
There was something going around last fall, and there's something going around last spring. There's always something going around. I'm not going to buy into this. And like, oh, that guy's crazy. How could he not? But that broadcast shadow, the mainstream media right now, numbers right now are pathetic. They're like 9% trust.
Oh yeah, it's awful.
I mean, you could argue that there's always something around, right?
Always.
Like, and
Joe
people's
Biden's approval rating is better than the media.
Yeah. People's immune
Biden.
systems come up and down, right?
not.
Depending on how much sunlight
Is that
they
Joe
have
Biden?
has that.
Is that real Joe Biden?
What?
You're being tested.
Am I?
Is that the real Joe Biden?
What I'm saying?
Yeah.
On TV?
Yeah.
No, I think there's plenty
Okay.
of them.
All right, we're good.
I've seen a
We've
lot of
never met
different
before.
Yeah,
ears
that's all good.
and wrinkles and different facial
The best
features.
is when he scratched his neck in the
It
plastic.
sticks. It just sticks there and it stays
just
there.
hangs there.
I sent that to a couple of my quote normie friends, and
Yeah.
they were like, "Whoa, what the fuck is that?" And I was like, "You tell me. I don't know. It doesn't look real though."
That's the best way to play dumb.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah.
I'm
Dude,
I'm
what is
confused.
this?
Help me out.
I have no idea what that is. I don't know. It doesn't look real to me though.
I always tell people, like, ask normal people. Stop telling them things.
Yeah.
Stop preaching.
Yeah.
That's not going to work. Ask him questions. Have so much fun with it, right? Why did his neck stay when he scratched it? And then, but the best part is hearing all the trained
Excuses.
responses.
Yeah.
They're like, well, obviously,
He's dehydrated.
you didn't drink water today. Clearly he doesn't use Jergens in the back of his neck. Like, oh, you guys are. I'm like, oh, okay. I'll tell you what. What if I don't drink water for like 3 days and don't put any? I don't use lotion, but like, would it happen to me? And they're like, well, you're not 80. Well, what if I was 80, but you're not? And like, do you see how hard you're trying to prove that your eyes are actually telling you the truth and your brain is lying to you?
Yeah.
Let's go to an old
It's so
folks home.
fun.
Yeah,
let's go to an old folks home.
Well, we
I
head
should do
down
that.
to
Yeah.
That's
well,
actually a great way to do it.
Yeah. We'll just pull on some skin of some 80-years. They won't
just give him
mind.
a little pinch.
That's
All you
the
gotta do
most
is just
action
a little
they've
pinch
had in
the
a long
back of the
time,
neck,
dude.
See what happens. What were you saying?
About our immune system?
Yeah.
That basically, depending on how much sunlight we get, our immune system is more active.
And guess what they did? They tried to keep us inside.
Keep us inside.
Right? And then you're like, why do they want us to stay inside so much? Can't we just go out on our front lawn, do some driveway drinking with our buddies? Like,
Go
something?
work out.
And there's more oxygen outside, right? Like you're
Yeah.
not breathing conditioned air from your air conditioner, right? Or your heater.
God, you guys are such conspiracy theorists.
I know.
Just
it's
stay in your
ridiculous.
house and shut up. Just stay at home.
Shut up.
But the best part is the sun part actually started with sunscreen.
Right.
So depending on who you read and what you believe, 500,000 years of existence or 6,000 years of existence, otherwise known as many thousands of years of human existence, people didn't get sunburned.
Right.
Or skin cancer.
Or skin cancer. So like think of cowboys in the Old West. They were out in the sun all day. None of them were sitting there going, wow, I have a sunburn. I need to put some lotion on.
There's a reason that there's a term.
My sun
Redneck.
cream.
Yeah.
Redneck is a term for a reason.
But it gets red. They don't burn. They don't peel.
They don't burn. They
Well,
don't peel. They don't get skin cancer.
The redneck thing it came along later, right? Like it's probably
sunscreen.
It probably coincided with
We gotta ask the Okie here. I mean, this is
the term Okie is a little bit offensive. But the sunglasses, right? Because your eyes are how your body interprets what's going on in the environment, right? So if you get all the right rays, all the UV rays and the full spectrum, right?
Yeah.
Even the stuff we can't even measure because it's huge, right? It's huge, the spectrum. And it comes in your eye just like a scanner that you scan the price across, at the grocery store or whatever. And it tells your body to produce more melanin, right? And if you don't get all that full spectrum of rays into your eyeballs, your body doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
It hasn't been communicated from the sun to tell your body to throw out some more melanin,
Right.
to prevent that red neck.
Yeah, that and then so that's number one. And then the other thing is the sunscreen and the sunblock was number two because they're laced with ding 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 petroleum.
And forever chemicals that are transdermal.
Right, exactly. And they seep into your skin and they give you skin cancer.
I never got a sunburn until I started wearing sunscreen.
100%, dude.
Never got one.
My whole life as a kid, I never got a sunburn.
And then peanut oil. That's actually what gives you the sunburn. All the stuff you eat with peanut oil.
Yeah.
Yeah, seed oils and peanut oils, yeah.
There's one peanut that they've been genetically modifying, essentially. And the king of peanuts.
No,
I do that.
I forgot. Yeah,
he's military, so he's attention soldier.
At ease, Daniel. But there's one peanut that's developed by Oklahoma State University that they're using right now, and it's basically a Roundup Ready peanut that meets all the objectives of the peanut industry in order to produce a shelf-stable peanut. And that's what all produce is designed around, is in order to create a more shelf-stable product. That's what Bill Gates has invested in, this product called Apeel, Apeel, A-P-E-L, in order to increase the length of food on shelves, right? And most notably, produce.
Right.
Fruit, in particular.
Yeah, and you also never had peanut allergies until kids started getting overexposed to peanut oils in all sorts of...
Because it's not peanut anymore. It's starting to become some, petroleum product, essentially. And that's what our food is, evolving into based on epigenetics, So
our food isn't food.
No, exactly.
No,
it's not food.
not
It's now petroleum products.
Yeah.
It's part food.
That's what I mean. Going so hard in the paint on petroleum.
I know. I love oil. It's way better than electricity.
Yeah.
You guys happy with the wind and solar functionality of our power company telling us to not use our electricity in Texas, where we're literally standing right now on an ocean of hydrocarbons?
I know.
Bubble.
But yet we can't keep our electricity going?
That's unbelievable.
So stupid.
Yeah, I can go to that forever. I'm making a video right now about if I were the devil and the whole green movement, how I would con people into believing. You're going to love it when it comes out.
Yeah.
I don't know when that'll be, because writing it is very difficult to be accurate with information.
So is it straight audio? Is it a video clip with all kinds of
I just
cool
talked
stuff?
to Jonathan, my buddy who's a filmmaker today.
Nice.
God, I was at that concert standing, Holy Spirit sucked all my energy out today. I'm not even going to lie. It was just a long day yesterday. So tomorrow I have a meeting with him again, and we'll figure it. Somebody has to do these things. Somebody has to make something that anyone can watch and not discredit.
Yeah.
It's true.
Agreed.
It's good propaganda. And there's good propaganda and there's bad propaganda. There's true propaganda and there's false propaganda.
That's not how it works. There's truth and there's propaganda. There's no such thing as good propaganda.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I think there's a definition that coincides with my statement.
He's pulling out the search machine.
Propaganda. Are you kidding me? How dare you?
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, look, truth is truth.
I guess.
Propaganda is designed to steer you away from truth.
Well, it also has truth in
theory.
it. That's what makes good propaganda.
Yeah,
right?
A little bit of truth.
Yeah.
A lot of falsifications.
Well,
the constant gaslighting of everything is really getting
Oh,
annoying.
so yeah. Speaking of gaslighting, it's so funny. Like I got
There we go back on oil and gas.
I got
gaslighting. Call it like wind lighting.
This guy we had we
Breaking
know
wind.
Dr. Jonathan Lopez. He runs a podcast called Rad Dad Podcast. So we've both been on it. He lives over in the Colony, and or Louisville, one of those areas. But at any rate, we had him on the show recently, and he sent me this thing on Instagram, and it was basically no, it wasn't him. It was Anthony from across the street. He sent me this thing on Instagram, and he's like, man, I forgot how much gaslighting the media did around COVID and the 3.4% death rate, and how Trump was like, I think it's much, much less than 1%. Like, I think it's arguably like nominal at best, and then they're all like, Trump is filling us with disinformation. He's telling us lies. It's 3.4%, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, exactly. And he's like, I forgot how much gaslighting the media did around this, and it's coming back again. And my response to him was, they expected you to forget.
Yes.
They intended for you to forget, and they just swept it under the rug like it never happened.
Yeah.
Because they expected you to forget.
And that's because we usually do.
Because people usually do forget.
That's why they allowed all these Freedom of Information Act, these FOIA requests, because they'll come out and nobody even pays attention.
You see what came out today?
No.
The CDC website today posted that 99% of COVID deaths were not caused by COVID.
Oh,
today.
I didn't see that. No.
99%.
Wow.
I mean, you're watching this dismantling of stupidity.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the one thing I can't be around, because I've watched people come to life.
Well, you're around it.
I'm part of it.
Yeah.
But in the middle of this, I've also seen people like wake up and then go full retard.
Yeah.
Full retard.
Yeah.
Or go into paranoid crazy. I mean, there's because it's such an emotional thing.
It is.
But when you start seeing the CDC putting out 99% of COVID deaths were unrelated to COVID, and you share it with someone who totally believes in COVID, they still don't believe it.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
It's like they still don't believe. Like CDC came out. We had one.
Like, oh, it's
we
fake
had a
news.
show.
I'm like, well, then wasn't all the news that the CDC gave us then fake news?
Yeah.
And I think the interesting thing, because I've been watching The Walking Dead with my son, because I'm like, listen, this is kind of a documentary of time minus the zombies. This might be the world here pretty soon. So like, we're gonna watch the first few seasons.
The zombies just look a little different.
Yeah, they're just now they're just liberals. They'll just be transgenders, not zombies.
They're probably not going to bite you, but they're going to be wandering around.
They just had their penises. They've had their penises chopped off or tucked under into their Target swimsuit.
The walking tucked.
Untucked.
That's so funny.
But we're watching that, and I was like, I think it was like season 2 or something. I don't know. I'm just trying to binge watch with a teenager, something that makes me relevant to him. Mm-hmm. And there was a part where they're in the CDC, and if you haven't watched it, I'm going to ruin it for you because it's not that great of a show anyway. But they're at the CDC, and the guy at the CDC goes, "Yeah, it doesn't matter. You're all infected anyway." Mm-hmm. Right? Like, okay, well, that's the CDC. So everyone who watched that show is like, "Oh, the CDC infected us all to become brain-eating zombies and to kill our loved ones." But COVID's real.
Yeah.
Like the programming did not work right there.
Yeah.
I think they were trying to tell us, like, don't trust this. And then today I showed, I have 3, I don't know if I don't even know if I can call them friends anymore. I'd try. I love them. Pray for them. I don't know if I can call them. I don't know if I want to hang out with them, but I like text them. I'm like, hey, here's a screenshot from the CDC. Because these people, like in COVID, I was selling products to doctors, right? So I had a lot of friends who were doctors. They all knew, like, hey, you can go talk to him about anything. And I never closed my office. So they would get off the hospital. They knew that you couldn't hang out with anyone. And I'm like, hey, if you want to stop by, I don't wear masks. Like, they just come by and hang out. One guy came over with a file, like a big, thick file. And he just started going all these, this guy's head was cut off in a motorcycle accident, died of COVID.
Yeah.
This guy's lung collapsed. He suffocated to death. He died of COVID. I mean, he just went through like
everybody
10
died
examples.
of COVID for 2 years.
But
Get a lot of money for that.
This was like June of 2020.
Yeah.
When everyone still thought, this thing's going to kill us all.
Yeah.
We were having a blast talking about this, by the way, because it was a real serious topic. And then I was just like, what are we going to do? What can you do? That back then was
drink beer in your driveway.
Yeah, that's what we did.
We did. We didn't believe in any of that stuff.
Yeah.
No, but it's like, sitting there thinking back to that, I'm like, what? And the guy
we were like sharing whiskey bottles. We're like, here you go.
Yeah. Kills everything.
I was just, everybody I met, I hugged them. I'm like, whoa. I'm like,
yeah.
I was in New York when it hit.
Yeah. Yeah.
How uncomfortable can I make this?
I was in Manhattan when the lockdown began. So I saw literally, I counted 39 or 40 people on all of Madison Avenue.
That's wild.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
So like seeing that, and I'm like, this is dumb. Like there is no other way around this. This something has to change here. And then it kind of got really dark for everybody. And in the last year and a half, I think things have just got, like, if you can't laugh right now, you're really going to die a miserable life.
Yeah.
Seeing this stuff like, hey, that 3-letter agency that you trusted for all of your healthcare needs, they just literally just admitted that they lied to you. And then they go, well, that's fake news.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Like, that's hilarious.
That's
like,
what they're calling fake news. I know. It's so funny. Like we had one of our shows on YouTube removed due the policy.
Is that the one where you had the article written about you guys?
No,
the right-wing conspiracy.
No, not that one.
Talking freedom.
No, not that one.
That was because of my cousin Sherry.
Yeah,
that was a proud moment. I was proud of both of you.
Yeah, that was
so proud.
We were too.
His cousin Sherry is a fellow with the Texas Public Policy Foundation, and so we had her on the show, and they did a hit piece on her and looped us into it because she did the show.
You made it.
Yeah, and
she's about to write a. Well, I don't know if I can release it. So.
Okay, well but. It was a different one. We had a friend of mine up in Connecticut who was like ground zero for, like, she was on the list when the FBI was targeting moms who were going to school board meetings and raising a stink.
Domestic extremists.
Yeah, so protecting their
children.
So she was talking about how she made the comment that masks don't work on the show, and this is before the CDC came out and said masks don't work.
Right.
6 months later, the CDC comes out and says, "Hey, you know what? Masks don't work." Right. YouTube still wouldn't put the show back on. Like, they wouldn't let us like actually release it. But everyone calls that fake news because they're like, I still see people wearing masks. They're all over the place. Not as bad down here, but people are still wearing masks.
Can you imagine how much fun, like, the evil people this world had? They're like, you know what? Hey, man, we already got them for one. Watch the news tonight. They're going to be going for 2 masks.
For sure.
Yeah.
You're gonna go, and then you see people with the double mask. Like, they had to been cracking up.
Yeah.
They literally had to been laughing at the dancing monkeys, right? Like, that's all we were doing. Oh, okay.
Well, Fauci would roll into a briefing with like Trump, and he'd have 2 masks on, and he'd take his like Washington Nationals mask off, and he'd have his paper mask on underneath, and he'd take that one off. And it's
like jockeys.
It's like, what's his name? What was it? Is it Leslie Nielsen and when he
Naked Gun?
Yeah, when he doesn't like
the
take
full body condom.
And he takes something off, and they take something else off. No, maybe it's Airplane. I'm thinking of where he takes off something, and he takes off his glasses, and then he takes off his glasses again, and he takes off his glasses.
Oh
again.
I think it is Airplane.
Yeah,
feels right.
So yeah. But that's the world, man. That's the world today.
It's fun though. Like,
you got to have fun with it.
Oh
I'm learning to have more and more fun with it because you're right. Like, if you can't laugh, then you're gonna cry.
Hard.
You're gonna cry.
Yeah.
You know.
And you're gonna go. The thing is, you're gonna go. You live in a dark hole, and then you crawl out of the dark. Is that Plato's cavern or something like?
The allegory of Plato's cave.
Plato's cave. Where no, you can't ever leave the cave, and then someone leaves the cave. They all leave. So you're like living. You were literally fell out of your mother's womb in the devil's world.
Yeah.
Right? So God sent you to your mother's womb. You fall out of your mother's womb. You end up in the devil's world. You're living in darkness.
Yeah.
And then you start reading about the truth. And most people and this isn't my opinion. If you're really seeking the truth, you're going to find God.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And then it's like you get out of that darkness and you're into the light. And then you're like, holy crap, it's really lonely up here.
Mm-hmm.
There are not many people like me. So you're like, screw it. I'll just go back into the darkness for a while. And then you're like, this is really bad.
Yeah.
And then you go even higher up
Yeah.
and you're like, whoa, well, I know more stuff now.
Yeah.
And then you start going sideways.
Uh-huh.
And you're like, well, I know this, but I'm going to keep going down these rabbit holes. And you just get further and further away from everything. And then those people vanish into the abyss.
Yeah.
They literally just get caught in there. Everyone's out to get me, because you kind of feel that way. Literally everything in your life is out to kill you. That's kind of a fact.
Mm-hmm.
Like, except for your family,
Right.
God, kind of everything you eat, everything you do, your vehicle, everything is kind of designed to get, which is what makes life fun.
Right.
There's a reason roller coasters are fun, is because you could die.
Yeah.
Like, that's the adrenaline.
That's the
Everything
adrenaline
that's
rush.
really fun, you could die.
Mm-hmm.
Life, you could die. But some people look at this whole thing, and it's just astounding, because I've seen all the whole spectrum. I have seen everything, because online was kind of the last thing that I did. I mean, I kind of got pushed into doing this, because I was just fascinated by, like, I was on Twitter, and then I got warned and, banned. I still don't get much reach on Twitter from my posts, and I had a Twitter account a long time, so I was like, I'm just done. I haven't used Facebook since the election. And then I was like on a Signal group with some people, and then I went to Telegram. And I love Telegram, actually. I think it's the best platform for being able to share and learn. It's really quick and fast.
Good content.
But man, is it a freaking crazy place. I mean, it is an emotional roller coaster on that platform.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just full of psyops, like,
Yeah.
because that's where everyone ended up. And now that you have X or Twitter or whatever it is, but I didn't really care to go on. I didn't go on. I was in real life. I was in real meetings. I was driving out and flying out and meeting people and talking about what's actually happening. And then you get put into the online, and then I've seen the whole spectrum. So I've seen it in real life, and then I've seen it online. And online is like this steroid version of like awesome awakening stuff on one side, and then like, whoa.
They call that the long tail effect, I believe.
Pull the reins in a little bit, because you kind of learn, like God says, right, to focus your eyes on what is beautiful, what is pure, what is admirable. And that's not what happens. People just are like, well, I want to know everything about child trafficking. They watch all this dark stuff, and then it just creates darkness in them. I feel like the more you learn, and I've
that's a tough one to start with, man.
Well, it doesn't matter what any of them are, right? It doesn't. All these things are dark. Even if you look at like the Federal Reserve, that's darkness. That's enslaving mankind.
Yeah.
So once you know something, you're going down the rabbit hole. Once you get the gist of it, like for me personally, I get the gist of it and I'm out. Like I don't need to go further. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know where that came
the
from. That was
child trafficking thing is like flipping on a light, and you're like, oh shit. And the Federal Reserve is more ombre, right? Like it just kind of fades to darkness.
Yeah. Well,
I feel like
child trafficking thing it's the largest. When I first found out, I was broken for like 3 weeks. When it first really hit me, what happens to these kids?
Yeah.
It's terrible.
I was broken for 3 weeks. I couldn't function. Could not.
You talked about how you did your testimony, and then I've handwritten mine out, and that was the impetus for my belief in God, because once I understood that there was that level of evil in the world, and I could not imagine anything more depraved and evil than something like that. And then I was like this, and then I understood, and then I started to understand where it came from, right? It's in the Bible, and when I understood that, that's when I said to myself, this is the devil that's causing these people to do this. This isn't the Bible. These people are worshiping the devil, and that's why they do this. And there is no possible way the devil can't be real. People don't just do this on their own.
No.
And so, and it's not just the abductions and the trafficking and the sexual abuse. I mean, it's so much worse than that. And
organ harvesting.
All of it. And when I understood it, deeply understood it, and I had that kind of aha moment, that's what led me to God, because I was like, look, you can't have the devil without God. Right? God, the devil does not exist without God.
You're kind of a perfect microcosm as to what I believe everyone's going to go through in the next 3 years.
Yeah, it's a thing. And whether you're a believer or not, I wasn't a believer, I was atheist. And I found that hole, and I went into it, and I when I finally understood the depravity of it all and the connection to the devil, I was, like you said, I was broken. I had this moment, and then I thought to myself, man, the devil can't exist without God. And then I said, in my head, I was like, I need to read the Bible, and I need to better understand what's in that book. And then it kind of unraveled on me from there, and it just, it's changed my life, and for the better, obviously. But that is what did it for me. Like I've been down all the rabbit holes, like chemtrails and lizard people, and
maybe real,
like all that stuff.
Possible.
I just kind of went down all of them, and then I was just like, I landed on satanic ritual abuse, and I was like, whoa.
And you see all the arrests that have taken place in the past, but nobody serves any time. They arrest people, they're letting them go.
Yeah.
The Satanism in the military.
Franklin scandal and all that stuff. I started researching all of it, and I was like, wait a minute, like these guys just get off scot-free.
There's going to be a 9-part series made about that very soon. A very good knowledge of that. Not very soon, but it's being written right now.
Yeah. John
that
of God.
story needs to be told.
John of God.
Yeah.
John of God.
That's terrible. Oprah's buddy.
Horrible name.
Yeah.
Right? Like, look at all the ways that they use. Here's a great example. What's the name of that show? What's the name of the show on Netflix with with Gilead, and what's the name of it? Handmaid's Tale.
Oh, The Handmaid's Tale, yeah.
Handmaid's Tale is like John of God. He made his name to sound like he was a holy man,
Yep.
right? Which also says in the end times and 4 different places in the Bible that I can think of. Or actually, go back to If I Were the Devil by Paul Harvey.
Right.
What did he say? If I were the devil, I'd start in the church, right? And I would have priests abusing children. It starts there. So John of God was actually symbolic. But Handmaid's Tale, so this is how they fought God and Christianity, discipleship, whatever you want to call it. But they fought it in this category because Handmaid's Tale is actually a full depiction of what Sharia law would be, right? You make a mistake, break a law, you end up hung on a wall. Like, study Sharia law. It's brutal.
Well, it's creeping into our society.
So it's already in Dearborn, Michigan. There's parts of Dallas that are under Sharia law right now. You see the Islamics with the red beards and stuff. I mean, it's symbolism. But when you look at Handmaid's Tale, which I think was the #1 streaming show for a few years.
Oh, wow, yeah.
That whole show disguises Sharia law but makes the Christians the bad guy. And here's something I figured out the other day with my wife. I don't even know where it came from. But they used the term praise be, right? So I have a friend, Chris, from church. Everything that's good, people say amen. They say that's great. He always goes, praise God. And it's a big old smile. And praise God. I love hearing him say it. But they say praise be. Who would be? Baal.
Yeah, I was going to say Baal. Beelzebub.
Yeah.
Baal.
They put it in front of your face, but they make the Christians look like the evil ones. And then they use the Bible. Like, think of it like forced marriages and birthing children. That's not.
It's a weird show.
It's horrible.
It's terrible. I turned it off. I quit watching
I haven't watched
I
it.
couldn't. Yeah, I watched it.
I know the show, but I have not watched it.
So
I won't at this point.
It's horrid. It's one of
I
those.
stopped watching TV, man. I
me
can't
too.
anymore.
It's just bad programming, man.
All of
If
it.
you want to be that way, if you want to live on the dark side, just go watch the mainstream media. That's just
Seriously.
programming. Netflix and Apple and
If
all
your
these
IQ
people.
is too high,
dumb
just
yourself down.
throw on CNN for about a half an hour. You'll come back down.
Yeah.
It'll work out.
You
for
will. You'll feel happy.
It'll drop to about
But
a
you won't
72. Well, man, thank you for coming out.
Absolutely.
This was awesome.
Yeah.
We should definitely do it again and go deeper on the
let's
next
do
one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on chapter 4 of Hope of the Wicked, actually.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to keep.
I'm on
getting-
round
yeah,
3.
20 more. I mean,
I'm
I
on
know
round 3,
a lot
chapter
of it
4.
already, but
Yeah. But like I said, like even as
At
much
least
as you
80%.
know, there's a lot of information in there that just like it ties it all together, and it just
will
makes
be
a lot of
nuggets.
connections. Definitely nuggets that you learn, and we've talked about it too. Little things pop out at you, and you're like, oh, I knew about this, but I didn't know that.
In depth.
Yeah.
He's very good at describing
detail.
things.
and they
Yeah.
talk about one of the things
We didn't
that-
even talk that much about Hope of the Wicked, did
We
we?
didn't.
We did
No,
a
that's
disservice
all right.
to all of your listeners.
No, that's okay. I mean, we're
talking a lot about it.
We're
on
doing a
podcast.
chapter by chapter review on it, so they're gonna get plenty of
But
it.
we were talking about Alice Bailey.
Oh, yeah.
In Hope of the Wicked,
Yeah.
and you can go and see lucistrust.org. We were just talking about lucistrust.org,
Yeah.
and they reference Alice Bailey, but that lucistrust.org still exists, and they it's clear as day.
They
that
still
it's-
tout her.
Yeah, they still tout her,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all linked up. So I mean, all these lines, all these rat lines, they're still
Right.
leading back to the Masons and the Illuminati and Giuseppe Mazzini or whatever.
Yeah, we'll
and
get into the
Adam
Fabian
Westside.
Society
Yeah.
soon, which
Yeah, I
we
mean,
kind
it's
of
all-
alluded to earlier with the slow burn, like
all still out
take
there.
take an inch,
Yep.
just a step at a time.
But now it's just,
it is.
I mean,
It's the
everything's-
flood's coming.
it's coming.
Yeah.
It's disguised. They keep
Yeah.
it disguised. They keep the veil on, but underneath that veil, there's an ugly ass face.
Oh yeah. 100%.
You don't want. There's a reason why they have a veil on.
Yeah,
But keep that veil on.
that's right.
Well, thank you guys. This was a blast.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. God bless you all.
God bless.
Are you listening? Damn.
All right, dudes and dudettes, that's a wrap for this episode of Dudes Talking Freedom. Special thanks to our boy Eric Rice from Critical Rice Theory. Go check out his Telegram channel. And while you're at it, check out ours, Dudes Talking Freedom. Do us a favor, smash those like, subscribe, follow, and share buttons. Help us spread that freedom. For DTF, this is Jeremy,
This is Luke.
and we'll see you next time.